The North Dominion ships cut through space like massive predators. Their hulls gleamed with a metallic sheen under the light of Alpha Centauri. Commander Tahoe stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, his tall figure casting a shadow across the command deck. His 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of the small human outpost. "Primitive technology," he said to his second-in-command, Jinsu. "Their energy signatures barely register on our scanners." Jinsu nodded respectfully. "The colony appears to have fewer than 10,000 inhabitants. Their defensive capabilities are minimal." The North had conquered hundreds of worlds over thousands of years. Their empire spanned 6 spiral arms of the Andromeda cluster. Species far more advanced than humans had fallen before their might. These humans would be no different. "Send the standard message," Tahoe ordered. "They will surrender or be destroyed." On the human defense vessel Defiant Asterisk, alarms blared as the massive alien fleet appeared at the edge of their system. The ship was small compared to the approaching armada, with just enough firepower to handle the occasional pirate or asteroid threat. Now it faced an invasion force. Captain Juwu rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding. The crew looked to her with frightened eyes. Most had never seen aliens before, let alone faced hostile ones. "Status report," she demanded, sliding into her command chair. 57 vessels, reported Officer Mincio, his voice shaking slightly. "The smallest is twice our size. The largest is," he paused, checking his readings again, "is nearly the size of a small moon." Juwu's mouth went dry. The Defiant Asterisk was Earth's most advanced defensive ship, but it was designed for patrol duties, not war. The colony behind them housed families, scientists, and engineers, people who had come to build a new life among the stars, not to die in an alien invasion. "They're transmitting a message," said Communications Officer Yunji. "Audio only." Juwu nodded. "Put it through." A deep, rumbling voice filled the bridge. The translation software struggled to keep up with the alien language, but the message was clear enough. "Insignificant species, this is Supreme Commander Tahoe of the North Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender your colony and submit to our authority, or be annihilated. You have 1 planetary rotation to decide." The message ended abruptly. The bridge fell silent except for the steady beeping of the scanners. "They're just sitting there," Mincio said, "waiting for our answer." Juwu stood up slowly. Her crew watched her, waiting for guidance. She had trained for first contact scenarios, but nothing like this. Earth needed to know what was happening, but a transmission would take days to reach home. "Send a message to Earth," she ordered. "Priority 1. Tell them everything." "That will take 4 days to reach them," Yumji reminded her. "I know," Juwu said. "But if we don't survive this, they need to be prepared." She straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. "Open a channel to the alien command ship." "Channel open," Yunji confirmed after a moment. Juwu looked directly at the view screen. Though she knew the aliens couldn't see her, her voice was steady as she spoke. "This is Captain Juwu of Earth. We have no quarrel with you, but we will not surrender our colony. If you seek peaceful relations, we welcome the opportunity. If you seek conquest," she paused, her eyes narrowing, "you should reconsider." On the North flagship, Tahoe listened to the humans' response with growing amusement. The translator converted the alien language, and the bridge crew exchanged glances of disbelief. "They refuse?" Jinsu asked, blinking his secondary eyes in surprise. "With only 1 small vessel against our fleet." Tahoe laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Courage or foolishness, it hardly matters. Launch a squadron of drones. Let's test their defenses." 20 sleek attack drones detached from the North ships and accelerated toward the Defiant Asterisk. On the human vessel, Mincio's console lit up with warnings. "Captain, they've launched attack craft. 20. No, 24 small vessels, heading straight for us." Juwu's mind raced. Running was pointless. Fighting was suicide. But perhaps, power up the experimental shield system, she ordered, and prepare to deploy the quantum mines. Her weapons officer, Guck, looked up in shock. Captain, those systems haven't been fully tested. The shield could fail, and the mines might detonate prematurely. And if we do nothing, we definitely die, Ju replied. Sometimes you have to gamble when the stakes are this high. The defiant hummed as its experimental shield generator came online. Unlike standard energy shields, this one used quantum uncertainty principles to create a defensive barrier that existed in multiple states simultaneously. In theory, it could absorb far more damage than conventional shields. As the North drones approached, Ju gave the order to deploy the mines. Tiny objects, no bigger than a human fist, scattered into space around the defiant asterisk. On the North flagship, Taiho watched with mild interest. His scanners detected the small objects but classified them as debris or primitive weapons. Their ship is activating some kind of shield, Jinsu reported. Unusual energy signature, but nothing our drones can't penetrate. The drones opened fire. Streams of energy lanced toward the defiant asterisk. The quantum shield flickered as it absorbed the first volley, glowing with an otherworldly light. Shield holding at 82%, Mincio reported, sounding surprised. The new system is working. Activate the mines, Ju ordered. Cuck pressed a sequence on his console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to twist around the tiny objects. The North drones suddenly found themselves pulled in multiple directions as localized gravity wells formed around each mine. 3 drones collided, exploding in silent flashes. 4 more spun out of control, their navigation systems confused by the gravitational anomalies. The remaining drones tried to adjust their approach, but the unpredictable gravity fields made targeting nearly impossible. On the North flagship, alarms sounded as the drone squadron reported massive failures. What is happening? Tahoe demanded, his amusement fading rapidly. Unknown technology, Jinsu replied, frantically analyzing the data. They've created some kind of gravitational distortion field. Our drones can't compensate. Tahoe stared at the view screen as more of his attack craft were destroyed or disabled. This was impossible. A primitive species shouldn't have such technology. Recall the surviving drones, he ordered. Prepare a full analysis of their defensive capabilities. As the remaining drones retreated, Captain Ju knew they had only bought themselves time. The shield was already failing, its experimental nature showing as power fluctuations rippled through the ship. Prepare for emergency jump, she ordered. We need to warn Earth. The defiant asterisk turned and accelerated away from the colony, its engines straining. Moments later, it vanished in a flash of light, jumping back toward Earth. Tahoe watched the human ship escape with growing anger and curiosity. For the first time in centuries, the North Dominion had encountered something unexpected. These humans were clearly more resourceful than they appeared. Follow them, Jinsu asked. No, Tahoe decided after a moment. Prepare the main fleet. We will crush their homeworld and end this quickly. He didn't know that his decision to delay had just given humanity the one thing it needed most: time to prepare. The defiant asterisk limped back to Earth, its engines damaged from the desperate escape. Captain Ju stood before the United Earth Council in Geneva, her uniform still bearing scorch marks from electrical fires on her ship. The massive chamber was packed with leaders from every nation. They call themselves the North Dominion, Ju explained, her voice carrying through the silent hall. They control hundreds of worlds across the Andromeda cluster. Their technology is centuries beyond ours, and they view us as nothing more than insects to be crushed. General Sunwoo, a stocky man with gray hair, leaned forward. How did your vessel survive the encounter? Our experimental quantum shield and gravity mines bought us time, Ju replied. But they won't work again. The North will adapt. President Hana of the Pacific Alliance rose from her seat. She was known for her cool head in crisis. How much time do we have before they reach Earth? 6 months at most, Ju said. Their main fleet is gathering. When they come, they'll bring enough firepower to reduce our planet to ash. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Some leaders called for immediate evacuation of Earth. Others suggested surrender. A few demanded they send all available ships to attack the North immediately. President Hannah raised her hand for silence. Captain Ju, in your opinion, do we have any chance of survival? Ju looked around the room at the frightened faces. The North have conquered 100 worlds, but they've never faced humans before. We have something they don't understand. And what's that? Asked General Sunwoo. Adaptability, Ju said firmly. The North perfect a strategy and stick with it. We try, fail, learn, and try again. It's how we survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive tendencies. It's how we'll survive this. For 3 days, the council debated. On the 4th day, they'd reached a decision that would change human history forever. Total unification of Earth's military, scientific, and industrial resources. Factories that once built cars now produced ship components. Research labs shared data freely across former national boundaries. Militaries that had eyed each other with suspicion for centuries now trained together. The fear of extinction proved stronger than ancient rivalries. Dr. Junho, a brilliant physicist who had been developing quantum technology in secret for years, was given unlimited resources. He worked day and night with a team of scientists from around the world, improving the shield technology that had saved the Defiant Asterisk. The shield needs to adapt faster, he explained to military officials. The North weapons shifted frequency 3 times during the attack. Our shield needs to predict the shifts before they happen. In orbital shipyards, engineers worked around the clock. They couldn't match North technology, but they could use human ingenuity to create unexpected advantages. Commander Minji, a veteran starship engineer, developed a new class of fighters so small they'd barely registered on standard scanners. The North expect us to build bigger ships to match theirs, she explained. Instead, we'll build smaller, thousands of fighters that can slip through their defensive screens and target critical systems. On the North command ship, Supreme Commander Taho studied the data from the skirmish with growing unease. The human vessel had performed impossibly well. Its shield had adapted to their weapons in real time, something no primitive species should be capable of. Science Director Do Yun, a slender North with unusually pale skin, presented his findings to the War Council. The humans have been spacefaring for less than a century, yet they deployed quantum field technology and gravitational weapons. How is this possible? Taho demanded. Our scans showed them to be primitives. I believe, Do Yun said carefully, that they developed these technologies in response to our attack. The data suggests their shield algorithms rewrote themselves during combat. General Kyu, the fleet's tactical officer, scoffed. No species develops technology that quickly. This one might, Do Yun insisted. I've analyzed their communication signals. In the last 100 years, they've progressed from simple radio to quantum entanglement. Their rate of technological advancement is unprecedented. Taho paced the command deck, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he considered this information. It changes nothing. We will crush them with overwhelming force. I recommend caution, Do Yun said. Perhaps we should study them further before. The Dominion does not show caution, Taho interrupted. We show power. Prepare the extinction fleet. Back on Earth, the first new defense satellite was launched into orbit. Unlike previous military satellites, this one was designed by Dr. Junho's team. It contained a modified version of the gravity mines, scaled up to affect much larger areas of space. If they work, Junho explained to President Hana, these satellites will create a web of gravitational distortions around Earth. Any ship trying to approach will be pulled off course. And if they don't work? President Hana asked quietly. Junho's face was grim. Then we'll try something else. That's what humans do. In underground bunkers, civilian populations trained for evacuation procedures. Children learned emergency protocols alongside their regular studies. Farmers planted additional crops to build food reserves. Every aspect of human society shifted to prepare for war. Captain Juwu, now Admiral Juwu, took command of Earth's first proper warship, the Determination Asterisk. Built in just 4 months using technology adapted from the Defiant Asterisk, it was humanity's best hope for a defense. Our advantage is adaptation, she told her crew during their first briefing. The North perfect a single approach and use it against everyone. We'll try 100 approaches and change tactics the moment they start to fail. Training was brutal. Crews practiced combat scenarios until they could perform them half asleep. Engineers modified systems between drills, improving efficiency by tiny margins each time. On a rare quiet evening, Admiral Juwu stood in the observation lounge of the Determination Asterisk, looking down at the blue-green planet below. Earth seemed so fragile from orbit. Dr. Chunho joined her, his eyes red from lack of sleep. The satellite network is online, he said, and the shield upgrades are complete. We've made more technological progress in 6 months than in the previous 20 years. Will it be enough? Juwu asked softly. Chunho didn't answer immediately. I don't know, he finally admitted. But even if we lose, the North will remember humanity. We won't go quietly. As they spoke, long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of the solar system. The North Fleet had arrived early, a massive armada of warships stretching as far as telescopes could see. Alarm sirens wailed across Earth and its orbital facilities. Civilian evacuation to underground shelters began. Military personnel rushed to battle stations. Admiral Juwu watched the approaching enemy on the bridge display. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady as she opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Admiral Juwu. The moment we've prepared for has arrived. Remember your training. Remember that you fight not just for yourselves, but for the future of our species. She paused, then added, humanity has faced extinction before. Each time, we've emerged stronger. This time will be no different. As the North Fleet moved closer, humanity prepared for the greatest fight in its history. The North warships moved through the outer solar system like a dark cloud. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals unknown to human science. Supreme Commander Tayo stood on his command deck, watching the holographic display of the Sol system with satisfaction. This primitive world will burn, he said to General Kuwu. Their colony defenses were nothing. Their homeworld will fall just as easily. General Kiwu nodded, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The scouts report minimal orbital defenses, only a handful of warships and some crude satellites. Begin the attack formation, Taiho ordered. Full speed ahead. The North Fleet accelerated toward Earth, their engines leaving trails of blue light. 300 ships strong, they had conquered worlds far more advanced than this one. Victory was certain. On the bridge of the Earth Dreadnought Asterisk, Resilience Asterisk, Admiral Minho watched the approaching enemy fleet with steady eyes. He was younger than most expected for an admiral, but in a crisis, Earth needed commanders who could think creatively. His ship, built in just 5 months, was humanity's largest warship. Around it floated 20 smaller cruisers and 50 fast attack vessels. Enemy fleet approaching Mars orbit, reported his sensor officer, Jisu. They're moving faster than we predicted. Minho nodded. Are the satellites in position? Yes, Admiral. All satellites report ready. Minho tapped his command console. A holographic display of Earth and its orbital defenses appeared before him. The satellites looked ordinary, simple metal structures with minimal weapons, but appearances were deceiving. They're taking the bait, he said softly. They think we're defenseless. The North Fleet crossed Mars orbit, moving confidently toward Earth. Their sensors detected the defensive satellites but classified them as insignificant threats, simple weapons platforms barely worth noticing. "Should we destroy the satellites?" General Kiwu asked Taho. "Don't waste energy," Taho replied dismissively. "Focus on their ships. Those satellites can't harm us." As the North Fleet entered the satellite defensive zone, Admiral Minho gave a simple command: activate gravity web. Across space, the seemingly primitive satellites suddenly pulsed with energy. Instead of firing weapons, they created overlapping fields of gravitational distortion. Space itself seemed to twist and bend. On the North flagship, alarms screamed as ships were suddenly pulled in unexpected directions. Warships designed to move in perfect formation were yanked apart. Some collided, their hulls crumpling under the impact. Others spun out of control, engines flaring as they tried to stabilize. "What is happening?" Taho roared, gripping his command chair as the flagship shuddered. "Gravitational weapons," Science Director Doyan shouted over the alarms. "They've deployed gravity manipulation technology across their entire defensive line." A third of the North Fleet was immediately crippled. Ships crashed into each other or were stretched by opposing gravitational forces until their hulls split open. The perfectly ordered formation dissolved into chaos. Admiral Minho watched calmly as the enemy fleet broke apart. "Now," he said, "commence Operation Hornet's Nest." From Earth's orbital docks, thousands of tiny fighters launched. Each was barely larger than an old Earth car, with just enough room for one pilot and minimal weapons. But they were fast, incredibly fast, and nearly invisible to standard scanners. The fighters swarmed toward the disorganized North Fleet like angry insects. They didn't target the hulls of the massive enemy ships, but instead aimed for specific vulnerable systems: communication arrays, sensor nodes, engine cooling vents, power junctions. Inside one tiny fighter, pilot Subin maneuvered between massive North warships. Her craft was so small compared to them that it was like flying a bee between elephants. "Target locked," she reported over the comm, hitting the portside communication array. Her fighter fired a single precision strike. The beam hit a small junction on the enormous North ship. From the outside, the damage looked minor, just a small explosion on the vast hull. But inside, the ship's officers suddenly found themselves cut off from the rest of the fleet. This scene repeated 1,000 times across the battlefield. Human fighters darted between enemy ships, hitting critical systems and vanishing before the North could respond. On the Resilience Asterisk, Admiral Minho received continuous updates. Fighter Group 7 reports successful targeting of enemy flagship's sensor array, announced Communications Officer Yunji. Fighter Group 3 has disabled engines on 12 enemy vessels. "The satellites?" Minho asked. "Still operational. Gravity field is holding." On the North flagship, Commander Taho struggled to understand what was happening. His beautiful fleet was being torn apart not by overwhelming force, but by thousands of tiny strikes. "Target those fighters," he ordered furiously. "We can't," General Kiwu replied, panic evident in his voice. "They're too small for our targeting systems, and they move too quickly." Science Director Doyan studied his readings with growing alarm. "These aren't random attacks. They're systematically disabling our ship's critical systems. Communications, propulsion, weapons control, all being targeted with precision." A massive explosion rocked a nearby North cruiser. It had been completely operational moments before, then suddenly erupted in flames. "What happened?" Taho demanded. "Unknown," replied Doyan. "Wait, I'm detecting human fighters inside our ship hulls. They're somehow penetrating our outer defenses and attacking from within." This was the second phase of Operation Hornet's Nest. Special infiltration fighters, equipped with short-range phase shift technology, briefly went out of normal space to pass through the enemy hulls, then rematerialized inside to plant explosive devices. Pilot Yuri guided her phase fighter toward the engine core of a North destroyer. The phase shift could only be maintained for 3 seconds, enough time to pass through the hull, but not much more. Shifting in 3, 2, 1, she muttered, pressing the activation switch. The universe seemed to blur around her as her fighter partially left normal space. She passed through the hull like it was mist, then rematerialized in a maintenance corridor. Working quickly, she placed the explosive package against what her intelligence briefing had identified as a critical power junction, then phased out again before any North could respond. 10 seconds later, the destroyer lost all power and began drifting helplessly. Admiral Minho watched as the battle unfolded. The North had expected a conventional war, big ships firing at big ships. Instead, they faced thousands of fighters using hit-and-run tactics, targeting systems rather than trying to destroy entire vessels. "It's working," said Jisoo, amazement in her voice. "Their formation is completely broken." "Move to Phase 3, Minho ordered. The Earth cruisers, which had been holding position near the planet, now moved forward. Unlike the fighters, these ships engaged the North vessels directly, but only those already crippled by the fighter attacks. Commander Tejo watched in horror as his magnificent invasion force fell apart. A third of his ships were completely disabled. Another third were damaged so severely they could barely fight, and the rest were struggling to target the infuriating human fighters that swarmed like insects through his formation. "We must regroup," he said finally, his pride giving way to tactical necessity. "Order all functional ships to fall back to Martian orbit. We need to reassess." As the surviving North ships retreated, Admiral Minho allowed himself a small smile. Earth had survived the first wave, but he knew the war was far from over. "Recall all fighters," he ordered. "Repair crews to full readiness. The enemy will be back, and next time, they won't underestimate us." In the debris field that had once been a third of the North invasion force, Earth ships began search and rescue operations, not just for human pilots, but for North survivors as well. This, too, was part of Admiral Minho's strategy. Every captured North officer was a source of intelligence. Every recovered piece of alien technology might provide an advantage in the battles to come. As prisoner transports returned to Earth carrying the first North captives, humanity prepared for the next phase of a war that had only just begun. The stealth ship Shadow drifted silently near the North outpost. Its hull was painted with light-absorbing material that made it nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Inside, Captain Jiho checked his team's equipment one final time. "Remember," he told the 6 operatives, "we're here for the data and the jump drive schematics. No unnecessary engagement with the enemy." They nodded, faces serious behind their helmets. Each member of the team had been chosen for their specific skills. Taehi was a technology expert, Minjun a combat specialist, Wonjin a medical officer, Yoonji a codebreaker, Hyasu a pilot, and Doyen a linguistics expert who had studied the North language from captured prisoners. Approaching docking point, Hyasu reported from the pilot's seat. "Their sensors haven't detected us." The Shadow carefully matched speed with a rotating section of the North outpost. With precise timing, the ship extended a docking tube that attached to a maintenance airlock. "We have 30 minutes before the patrol comes back through this sector," Joe reminded them. "Move fast, stay quiet." They slipped into the outpost like ghosts. The North, confident in their superiority, had never expected an enemy to infiltrate their territory. Their security was designed to repel frontal assaults, not silent infiltrators. Inside, the team split into 2 groups. Jiho led Taehi and Minjin toward the central data core, while Wonjin, Yoonji, and Doyen headed for the engineering section to locate the jump drive schematics. The corridors were dimly lit with a bluish glow that the North preferred. Twice, Jiho's team had to hide as North personnel walked past, their 4 eyes focused ahead, unaware of the human intruders pressed into shadowy alcoves. In the engineering section, Doyen translated North technical labels for Yoonji as she searched for the jump drive files. Wonjin stood guard, a silenced weapon ready. "Found it," Yoonji whispered, connecting a data extraction device to a North terminal. Their security is complex, but they never expected anyone to reach this far into their territory. The system isn't designed to detect internal breaches. How long? Wanjin asked, eyes constantly scanning the entrance. 4 minutes to copy everything. At the data core, Jiho and his team faced a more difficult challenge. The central chamber was occupied by 3 North technicians. "We need a distraction," Jiho whispered. Minjin nodded and disappeared down a side corridor. Moments later, an explosion rocked a distant part of the station. Alarms blared, and the North technicians rushed to respond, leaving the data core unattended. "We have maybe 5 minutes," Jiho said as they entered the now empty room. "Tahi, work fast." Tahi connected their extraction devices to the main North database. Information flooded into their storage units, star charts, fleet deployments, communication codes, and most importantly, the locations of other North bases. "They're so organized," Tahi muttered as she worked. "Everything categorized and filed. They don't adapt or change their systems often." "That's their weakness," Jiho replied. "They perfect a system and stick with it. Makes them predictable." Their communicators beeped, the signal from the other team that they had secured the jump drive data and were heading back to the ship. "Time to go," Jiho said, disconnecting their devices once the download completed. As they moved to leave, a North officer suddenly appeared in the doorway. For a moment, both human and alien froze in surprise. Then the North reached for an alarm panel. Minjin moved faster than seemed possible. His stun weapon fired, and the North collapsed before his 4-fingered hand could touch the controls. "Drag him inside," Jiho ordered. "Make it look like he fell asleep at his post." They positioned the unconscious North at a workstation and slipped out. The distraction was still drawing attention, allowing them to return to the airlock undetected. All 6 humans made it back to the Shadow safely. As they detached from the outpost, Haisu guided the ship away with thrusters only, maintaining stealth until they were safely beyond sensor range. "Mission accomplished," Jiho reported over their secure channel to Earth Command. "We have the data and the jump drive schematics. No casualties, no detection. It was the 3rd successful raid in 2 months. Each mission brought back invaluable intelligence and technology that Earth scientists quickly adapted for human use." On Earth, Admiral Minho reviewed the reports from all the raid teams. The information painted a clear picture. The North were powerful but inflexible. Their tactics hadn't changed in centuries because they'd never needed to change. In the main war room beneath Geneva, Minho presented the findings to the United Earth Defense Council. Holographic displays showed North fleet movements and base locations. "They're gathering for another attack," he explained. "But this time, we won't wait for them to come to us." President Hanna looked skeptical. "You want to attack their territory? We barely survived their first assault." "Because we were unprepared," Minho replied. "Now we have their technology, their codes, their tactical information, and most importantly, we understand how they think." He activated another display, showing a star system near the edge of North territory. "This is their primary shipyard for this sector. If we strike here, we can cripple their ability to launch another major attack against Earth." General Sunwoo frowned. "Even with the intelligence we've gathered, such an attack would be risky." "Everything about our situation is risky," Minho countered. "But the North expect us to cower in fear, to focus solely on defense. They don't understand human nature. We don't just survive threats. We eliminate them." After hours of debate, the Council approved the plan. Within days, Earth's first deep space assault carrier, the Venture was ready for its mission. Admiral Minho took personal command of the vessel, the largest and most advanced warship humans had ever built. On the North homeworld, the High Council gathered in their ancient chamber. Tall windows looked out over the capital city, its spires reaching toward the purple sky. Sovereign Executor Kiyun, the supreme leader of the Dominion, listened with growing anger as reports detailed human raids on North facilities. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They were nothing. A single planet with primitive technology." Science Director Do-Yun stepped forward, his pale skin contrasting with the darker coloration of the military leaders. "We misjudged them fundamentally," he explained. "I studied their historical records from captured databases. They evolved on a death world, a planet with thousands of apex predators, extreme environmental variations, and constant natural disasters. Their entire civilization developed not through peaceful expansion, but through overcoming existential threats." General Gilho, who had replaced the disgraced Q after the Earth defeat, scoffed. "One victory does not make them a threat to the Dominion." "It's not just their victory," Do-Yun insisted. "It's how quickly they're learning from us. They've already incorporated elements of our technology into their ships. They're adapting faster than any species we've encountered." "What do you suggest?" Ki-Yun asked, his four eyes narrowing. "We should open diplomatic." "Diplomacy is weakness," interrupted General Gilho. "We will crush them with our full might." As the North leaders argued, unaware of the threat approaching one of their most important shipyards, Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of the Venture watching the stars streak by as the ship moved through hyperspace. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore," he told his officers. "We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity will not be conquered or intimidated. After 1,000 years of unchallenged dominance, the North are about to learn what it means to face humans in battle." The Venture accelerated toward its target, carrying with it humanity's determination to not just survive, but to take the fight directly to those who had threatened their existence. The massive North flagship hung in Earth orbit like a dark cloud. Its hull showed the scars of 2 years of brutal warfare. Once, the sight of such a vessel would have filled humans with fear. Now, it was just another ship, remarkable only because it carried Supreme Commander Taiho. On the surface below, Geneva was bathed in spring sunshine. The old United Nations building had been rebuilt after being damaged in a North attack the previous year. Inside the main hall, representatives from every nation on Earth waited in tense silence. Admiral Minho stood at the center of the human delegation. His uniform was decorated with medals, but his face showed the strain of 2 years of constant fighting. Beside him stood President Hana, her expression carefully neutral. "They're here," an aide whispered. The main doors opened. Supreme Commander Taiho entered, flanked by Science Director Do-Yun and 2 North guards. Taiho walked stiffly, his pride clearly wounded. His once magnificent uniform was simpler now, stripped of some of its decorations following his defeats. The room remained silent as the North delegation approached the central table. No applause, no cheers, no jeers, just the watchful eyes of a species that had fought the mightiest empire in the galaxy to a standstill. "Supreme Commander," President Hana said, her voice carrying throughout the hall. "Welcome to Earth." Taiho's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of discomfort among his kind. "I come as ordered by the Sovereign Executor," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. President Hana gestured to the chairs. "Please be seated." Once they were all seated, Taiho placed a small device on the table. It projected a holographic document, the authorization from the North leadership. "We have come to negotiate terms," Taiho announced, unable to completely mask the bitterness in his voice. Admiral Minho, now Earth's chief diplomat to extraterrestrial civilizations, stepped forward. "We're not interested in conquest, Commander. We never were. We simply refuse to be conquered." Science Director Do-Yun spoke for the first time. "Your species has achieved what no other could. You fought the Dominion to a standstill. The Sovereign Executor recognizes that continuing this war is impractical." "Impractical," Minho repeated with a slight smile. An interesting choice of words for a conflict that has cost millions of lives. Taiho's skin darkened, the North equivalent of a flush of anger. "You destroyed our primary shipyards. You disabled our long-range communication network. You turned our subject worlds against us. What would you call it? I would call it the natural consequence of attacking a species that has spent its entire history learning to overcome threats, Minho replied calmly. The negotiations lasted for 7 days. The North began with demands for human disarmament and restrictions on human expansion. By the final day, those demands had evaporated in the face of firm human resolve. On the 7th day, both delegations gathered for the signing ceremony. The treaty was displayed on screens throughout the hall and broadcast to billions of humans and North across 2 civilizations. President Hanna read the key points aloud. The North Dominion agrees to recognize Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory. The practice of forced subjugation of sentient species will end. All worlds currently under Dominion control will be granted the right to self-determination. Tahoe looked physically pained as she continued. A galactic council will be established where all species have equal representation. Technology will be shared for peaceful purposes. Military forces will be maintained only for defense, not conquest. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Tahoe placed his hand on the authentication panel. On behalf of the Sovereign Executor and the North Dominion, I accept these terms. Minho added his handprint beside Tahoe's. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we accept this peace. As they stood to leave, Tahoe turned to Minho. You should have remained in your system. You would have been safe there. Minho shook his head. That's not who we are, Commander. Humans don't hide from threats. We face them. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed dramatically. Species that had lived under North rule for centuries suddenly found themselves free. Many immediately joined the interstellar cooperative that Earth had established, not out of fear, as they had joined the Dominion, but out of hope for a better future. Human ships traveled to worlds no human had ever seen, not as conquerors but as partners and allies. Earth's adaptable technology proved valuable to many species, while humans eagerly learned from the ancient knowledge of others. Not all North accepted the new reality. Some military commanders refused to acknowledge the treaty and continued fighting. But without the support of their government, these rebellions were eventually contained. The Sovereign Executor, showing unexpected wisdom, gradually shifted North society away from conquest toward innovation and commerce. Their ancient civilization began a slow but meaningful transformation. 10 years passed. The scars of war faded. The interstellar cooperative grew to include over 60 species, with Earth serving not as its ruler but as one voice among many. On the 10th anniversary of the treaty signing, a celebration was held on Earth's largest orbital diplomatic station. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to commemorate a decade of peace. Admiral Minho, now gray-haired but still straight-backed, found himself on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Earth floated below, beautiful and blue. Admiral, a voice called. Minho turned to see Do-Yun approaching. The North scientist had become the representative of his people to the cooperative after Tahoe's retirement. Director, Minho greeted him with a genuine smile. Or should I say, ambassador now. Do-Yun is sufficient between old adversaries. The North replied. He carried 2 glasses of a shimmering liquid, a rare beverage from a world on the far side of the galaxy. He offered one to Minho. I've been studying human history more closely, Do-Yun said as they both gazed out at the stars. It's remarkable how often your kind has faced extinction. Ice ages, plagues, wars, environmental disasters. Yet each time, you not only survived but emerged stronger. It's in our nature, Minho replied. We adapt. We overcome. The North spent 10,000 years perfecting our civilization, Do-Yun said. We made it so efficient, so structured, that it became rigid. We stopped adapting because we didn't need to. Until we met humans. Do-Yun raised his glass. To humanity, the species that turned being outmatched into their greatest strength. Admiral Minho smiled and raised his own glass. To new beginnings, and to never making the mistake of underestimating any species, no matter how harmless they might appear. From the viewport, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter on a galaxy forever changed by the species that refused to surrender. As the celebration continued around them, Minho thought about how close humanity had come to extinction and how that threat had united his species like nothing before. Humans had not only survived, they had helped create something new and better. "What do you think the future holds?" Do-hyun asked. Minho considered the question. More challenges, more threats, more opportunities to adapt and grow. He smiled, and more reasons to work together rather than against each other. In the distance, a new ship was departing Earth, the exploration vessel Discovery *, headed for regions of space no known species had ever visited. Its crew included humans, Norith, and members of 12 other species, all working together. That, Minho said, pointing to the departing ship, is the future. Not conquest, but discovery. Not subjugation, but cooperation. Do-hyun's 4 eyes blinked in agreement. Perhaps that was the lesson we needed to learn all along. As night fell over half the Earth below them, billions of beings across thousands of worlds continued their lives in peace, a peace born from humanity's simple, stubborn refusal to surrender to the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known.